What if one introduction could change the entire course of your career? Who in your life has opened a door for you that you could never have opened yourself? When was the last time you intentionally did that for another woman in medicine?
This is a conversation that matters for women in medicine. We are all one introduction away from changing the entire trajectory of our lives.
The right who can bring the right how, and they bring other who's. Thanks for joining us today at the Healing Medicine Podcast. Who are you listening to? I am Dr. Jessie Mahoney, and my co-host is Dr. Ni-Cheng Liang. We are two board-certified physicians who bring decades of experience to the conversation about wellness. If you crave more ease and aspire to rediscover your love for medicine and life, one mindful step at a time, you are in the right place. We hope you'll love today's episode, and if so, please share it. A reminder that nothing in our podcast is medical advice. Welcome to today's episode, talking about the return on relationships, supporting other women well. Why this episode now? Number one, happy Women in Medicine Month. And number two, it was inspired by something really beautiful that happened to me recently. And I had several women sign up for my new Leading from the Heart leadership coaching group because another woman they trusted recommended me and recommended that they would enjoy the program. And it felt super amazing, one, to be recommended and to have them. I always ask people, how did you find out about me? Because it's helpful information to know sort of where they're coming from and what our connection is. And so they wrote these people's names, people who I knew as real people and have had conversations with and experiences with and have worked with. And that feels really amazing. Sometimes people just write a friend. And I noticed the difference between just a friend and a human whose name I knew. And so to be recommended is amazing. I also think for the recommenders, it feels good to be helpful and supportive. And then I think it feels really good to the women who are referred because someone's believing in them and helping guide them and feels like this could change your life and you should do it. So it's really a win-win-win. And it was an example for me of how to support each other well as women in medicine. And I will say one of the really sad things for me being a woman in medicine is that in my experience, we're not always as nice to one another as we could be. And there are many instances, though it's gotten much better, about kind of microaggressions and even macroaggressions between women in medicine. And I want to honor that. I think a lot of that comes from stress and scarcity and a system that hasn't always supported us well. And it's more reactive to that and a measure of our depletion than that we're not good humans. But I just want to reflect that if you have experienced this, you're not alone. It's common and it makes sense coming from a place of sympathomimetic storm, fight or fight, and trauma. But that this podcast is an invitation that we don't have to stay that way and that we can be strategic and intentional about supporting each other well. And I think that men in medicine have a culture of recommending and referring one another and supporting one another well. It's kind of, we would call it a boys' network. And that women do not do this so much. We often encourage each other to promote yourself and talk about yourself and stand up proud. And we don't take on that role of really supporting one another. I realize this is a generalization. For some people, they're amazing connectors and recommenders, of both sexes. And that's just a superpower. Some people are born with it. Others of us really have to learn it. And we might have learned it in our family of origin, or we might not have. But I do believe it's a skill that we can grow. So my hope in sharing today's episode is that we can all become connectors because it feels good to be a connector and it's helpful for those who are being connected. And I've done a bit of research on this recently, and it's not something I was taught, but I used to think it was a little bit sleazy, like, oh, connecting people, and it wasn't honest and genuine. And so this revelation recently and this new shift in perspective that it's actually just a very human thing that can feel really good when done in an aligned and authentic way. It feels good. It promotes good things in the world, and it helps good people bring better things to the world. And we really need that. It's also, I think, better than a lot of people go to paid marketing. And I hear this all the time, put yourself out there and pay this and do that. And we almost don't need to spend time and energy on that if we do it in a very authentic way, which feels so much better. And so I thought in this episode, we could share a bit about why this is and how it can work, and a bit about maybe what you and I have been missing out on.
Ultimately, referrals and recommendations matter. So, a referral is a gesture of trust in the person that's being referred and in the person that's receiving the referral.
And it feels good to the person who is recommending because they're being a helper.
Talking about our podcast as having ripple effects, recommendations and referrals also create ripple effects that benefit both parties. And then beyond that, the larger ripples are women in medicine as a whole, and then the profession as a whole. So, bringing in the framework of how you refer one of your patients to one of your colleagues, for instance, like a different subspecialist or someone even within your own specialty, but just has a different area of expertise, a subspecialist. And how much trust goes into knowing that when you send your patient to that other person, how well they're going to be heard, how well they're going to be taken care of. And so if we use that kind of mindset to recommend similarly other women physicians for care for our loved ones, our patients, also for talks, specific businesses. Many of us who are in medicine are also entrepreneurs, perhaps recommending a particular retreat. So using that same mindset to refer a patient to a trusted colleague, but applying that to women in medicine more, intentionally more of the time.
And I'm reminded when we refer a patient and you tell them this doctor, Dr. Liang, is going to take amazing care of you. I trust her. She's good at X, Y, and Z. She knows all about this. The patient feels much safer. And so sharing that personal connection, the information, not all the details, but the why they're a good doctor, how they will take good care of you is really reassuring to patients. And so we can really build up our colleagues and build up our communities by taking good care of each other. And I don't want to say propping each other up because we're all amazing physicians, just being honest and telling people what we know about other people. It feels really good. And so why this is especially important for women in medicine comes back to this quote that I heard, which is, what you say about yourself weighs ounces, and what others say about you weighs tons. And that personal endorsements from someone else carries much more influence than what you say about yourself. And I might even say, or even the facts. I think very often in medicine, we say the facts should speak for themselves, and we don't share that information so that we can learn to advocate for each other. And as women in medicine, we tend to not advocate for ourselves. We're often told it's arrogant to advocate for yourselves, and we often don't advocate for one another either. And so, can we shift to being amazing advocates for others? Many of us have been encouraged to self-advocate, be a good advocate for yourself. It's actually easier to advocate for others. Now, I'm not encouraging advocating for somebody you don't know, or always just saying people are amazing, because then your recommendation means nothing. But for people who you do know, and for people whom you've had good experiences with, rising tides lift all boats, as we say. And so I also have heard sort of the adage that you want to help, ask for referrals or recommendations, or ask someone to do this. And what I would like us to encourage instead of that is to really think about building ongoing circles of support amongst women and letting it be a space that's a more supportive space. That is like teaching people how to fish rather than just having energizing all the fishermen, I should say, as opposed to teaching people how to fish for one fish, right? And so how can we create these circles of support and support one another well, instead of waiting for other people out there to say nice things about us? So some lessons about relationship building. And this idea, I loved this idea that done right, relationship building is like nurturing a garden.
It reminds me that it harkens back to our recent episode about life lessons from gardening. So we can ensure to include the link to that prior episode in the show notes. But getting back to the learning point here is that you get to choose what to water, and that you can stop wasting water on dead plants. So stop watering dead plants. So clarify to you personally what that means. So how that works would be to not put in so much effort to trying to make people like you who just don't like you. Everyone doesn't have to love you. And that might go against what we were taught in medicine in terms of like wanting to be likable. And then that also reflects upon the people pleasing aspects. But in reality, with billions of humans on this earth, it's impossible for every one of those billions of human beings to love you or even like you. And it reminds me also of another podcast episode that we did about not being everyone's cup of tea. And similar to our own preferences for tea or coffee and different flavors, everyone is allowed to have preferences for flavors.
So what does this look like in reality? It looks like not searching for the more followers and the more people like you. It really looks like leaning into connecting with real friends and loyal supporters and letting go of those who aren't big supporters. You do not have to convince everyone to love you. Conserving your energy and your growth, just like the plants, for what can thrive and what feels amazing for you. And so this resonates with me, spending your time on people who you care about and not recommending everybody, but really leaning into who are your people that really support you? Who do you really truly want to support? Where are your genuine connections? Being vulnerable and caring, whether it's sending a text and just checking in with people, or asking if there's a way that you can help someone if you know they're going through a difficult time. And again, this isn't overextending yourself or offering something. Would it be helpful if there's something you're willing to do? It could mean reaching out. It could mean having strategic and honest conversations, spending time on your conversations. It's not a lot of conversations, which reminds me of like speed networking, but connect with a couple people and enjoy some deep conversations. It also involves really knowing people, knowing specifics about other people, which makes life so much more interesting anyway. So I was reminded as I've been thinking about this of our relationship, which I think is really an example of spending time on strategic and honest conversations. And what I mean by strategic is meaningful, helpful, important in that moment, not just small talk or, rambling on about things, but talking about really meaningful things and honest things and authentic things. That's the vulnerable piece. And taking good care of each other and recommending one another, not because we get a benefit from it, but because we know that person offers something really meaningful.
That can help other people.
Yeah, exactly. And when you can connect them to someone that they could really help, how beautiful is that?
Yeah, it makes being the connector quite fulfilling. And that's a great segue into how the Mindful Healthcare Collective started, which resulted out of basically tragedy and knowing that burnout and physician well-being was going to go significantly in the opposite direction in the COVID-19 pandemic. And then knowing about women in the well-being field for healthcare professional well-being, and basically asking all of you to help, to say, can we get together to become a group of trusted well-being experts who are also women physicians? Can we offer something to healthcare professionals to help ease suffering, particularly through the pandemic? That was basically how the Mindful Healthcare Collective got started.
A moment to reflect on what this relationship approach and supporting one another does not look like. And we've mentioned a few things just here, but it does not look like just recommending anyone because they asked you to. For me and you, it doesn't look like this idea of affiliate marketing or promoting something because you get benefit. Or it doesn't look like what I would call transactional networking, where you go somewhere and you do this and I'll do this. I think it's very important to let it be a real interaction that feels very authentic and aligned to you. And leaning into this idea of what that is for you, it's going to be something different for everyone. Some people can make connections like that, but the introverts amongst us take more time to get to know one another and trust one another. And remembering also that in medicine, we're trained not to trust. And so it takes often longer to build these relationships and to gift yourself time. There's no urgency, and their urgency is not your urgency. So just take your time and patience and waiting for that inner body compass to feel comfortable. And so I think this idea is that when you have repeated experience, you can share with conviction. You can be really clear about what you love about it and why you love it and who they are. The other thing to be a good recommender is to be specific. So speaking to details and why what they do is fantastic or why their product is fantastic. I can share why Nicheng is fantastic. I have shared here like what I loved about my speaking coach and what I learned. And so those are sort of ways to recommend someone when you've had an experience. And it's a way of authentically sharing things. And so share why someone you consulted in medicine is fabulous. Talk up our women colleagues who you've met authentically and honestly. Not everyone, not if you're in cahoots because you're all trying to support someone else's something. And I used to feel pretty uncomfortable about like sharing and recommending things. I would be really hesitant, even if they were something that I love. And what I have seen is that it's just an extension of you and it's an extension of owning what's authentic about you and what you love. And people can take it or leave it, but that it's you bringing more good to the world and more beautiful things to the world. And it's very helpful to those other things. And you're not sharing them to get anything back. It's not an exchange. It's just sharing something because you love it. And that leads to the next point of being a good recommender is to be credible. And so, share things in spaces where you are credible, where people trust you. Don't just throw it out there, but in maybe your specialty group or your residency group or your med school friends or people who have similar interests. It's not a global recommendation. It's recommending in spaces where people feel comfortable. So I think that that's an important thing. I also think it's really important not to badmouth anything. It could just be it wasn't a fit for you, or don't make a recommendation. So that when you do recommend something, you are credible. You only recommend things that you stand by fully, and humans and people. And it might be that you don't know someone well enough to recommend them yet. So it's not that you don't recommend them, it's just that you don't recommend them yet. And I think if you choose to recommend everybody, then your recommendation means nothing, right? And so be honest and lean into it. The other thing I would say is, yeah, either consistency or repeating. I think very often we think, well, I said something once, so I won't say it again. And I think that it's okay to share things more than once. And if there's something that you love, great experiences, great colleagues, great talks, great podcasts, things you love, the more often you share, the more it resonates. And again, don't bore people, but be thoughtful, and act with integrity. But I know that I often say, like, oh, well, I said something once, so I'll never say anything again. If it feels like the right fit and you're being a connector, connect away.
So now we wanted to bring up the situation about being introverts. And I think that from listening to this podcast, dear listener, you probably can tell that I'm an introvert. In fact, both of us are. Jessie and I both are introverts. And so I don't like, quote unquote, networking. I don't necessarily love speaking up in really large groups. I don't see myself as an extrovert connector, but I do see myself as an introvert connector. So we're not asking you to be someone that you're not. Embrace that introversion if you are an introvert, and delve into those deep, meaningful, fulfilling conversations, oftentimes one-on-one. Like, I love having one-on-one gatherings or conversations. I find that to be much more fulfilling than trying to make small talk with 5 different people standing in a group. So the solution isn't more networking. It's actually honing in your area of genius. And that's the better, deeper, richer, meaningful conversations. Did I mention I don't like small talk very much?
And I don't either. And so this deep and meaningful conversations as a way of building relationships and supporting one another, that was such a relief to me. I'm like, oh, that is me. I can do that. And I will tell you that I've actually leaned into it recently, and it has brought me tremendous joy.
So you had mentioned before we hit record that an approach that you shared with me about going to a networking event was finding someone to talk to, like honing in on one person. Yes, one person. And we can get really curious about one person, like genuine curiosity, right? Bringing your full authentic self into that deep and meaningful conversation where we as introverts, I feel like, love to be in compared to the opposite.
And I have found myself in some big spaces recently where I'm like, oh, I just don't know how, and my thought is that I can also meet a lot of people looking for one person that I deeply connect with. And so I don't have to get into all the noise and energy drain. I'm like, oh, that wasn't my one person. Oh, I haven't met them yet. And so I can do a little bit of that small talk in search of the diamond in the rough, which is I let it be a little bit fun. Like, I can't wait to figure out who this person here is going to be. Because when you meet them and you just have that deep and meaningful conversation, and it's really fun. The other thing I want to offer here as introverts, and this idea of really supporting one another and having relationships of value, is that we in medicine, often struggle with what I call bidirectional relationships. And so we're very good at giving and giving advice, and we're not so good at receiving. And so remembering that receiving is a gift to the giver. And so this can allow this sort of networking. That's not the word I want to use. Circle of support is the word I want to use, because networking makes me anxious in and
Me
of
too.
itself. That's funny, but that we can really give and receive support and practice that and let that be part of this internal growth. And so by supporting other women and recommending them and letting other people recommend you and receiving their compliments and their feedback, that this can help everyone grow and is a gift all around.
Another thing to remember is that there is absolutely nothing about leaning into the people that you already know, love, and trust. In fact, I think that your network of people is larger than you actually think it is. And then the ripple effects of leaning further into the people that you already know, love, and trust is exponential.
And don't make it a huge project. I think sometimes we're like, oh, now I'm going to be the supporter of all women. Be a supporter of a few, but do it well and do it proudly. And I think even those, if we all supported a few people we really believed in and cared about, the people you already know, love, and trust with intention, things would shift a lot. So my invitation here is, let's support other women in medicine and let's do it well, with love and care and kindness. And this involves sharing opportunities instead of guarding them. It involves staying out of scarcity mindset. It involves believing that there's enough space for all of us, and connect without strings attached is my thought, right? If you love someone, let people know you love them and celebrate each other's wins. And I would say loudly and publicly, but not too loudly and publicly, so that it's not just noise all over. Be thoughtful, but to remember to celebrate what other people have done. That is a way of supporting them. If you believe in it and you're proud of it and you know them personally, then celebrate them.
You can choose to set the intention to amplify, like amplify the retreats, different offerings, specific expertise, amplifying others' work, who has helped you professionally or personally. And you might be helping someone else by making that recommendation of that someone who helped you. The other thing that I love doing in the spur of the moment is providing unsolicited public service announcements or testimonials. Like if you just had a wonderful experience and you want to share it with the rooftops, like why not make that more public? It's coming from a place of authenticity, particularly if you share the story about the benefit that you just received. And then another one that is a bit more forthcoming is simply ask. Like, ask how you can support another woman in medicine. Is there someone that you think should be helping someone else, a whole lot of other people? Ask that particular person, like, how can I help you reach more people that you could help?
Another thought about that is, they may not know when you first ask them, because someone may have never asked them that question. And so say, when you think about it, I'm still here, take your time, because I think it's very rare for women in medicine to be asked how someone could support you. And we've also been taught like, oh no, I don't need support. And so give them time to allow that in. And part of me says also, just to remember that everyone out there is amplifying their stuff in weird and loud ways. And so it is important that people, us, that we do it authentically and honestly and set a precedent for how to be real and how to support things that we love and care about, and to lean into that, because I think that many of you will find it fun.
So some actionable items, should you choose to accept this challenge, some practical ways to start. Be a connector.
Speak specifically and generously about others' strengths. Come from a place of abundance, not scarcity. And invest your influence thoughtfully where it can have influence, not into a very noisy void. And share your vulnerabilities and humanity. It makes connections and relationships feel so much better to you. And it makes your recommendations and support of others much more human and relatable.
As always, we like to close our podcast with some reflection questions. So here are some for you. Who is one woman in medicine you could lift up this week through a referral, an introduction, or some unsolicited public praise?
How would it feel to give that kind of support?
How might that action ripple out far beyond you?
When women in medicine lead with their heart, lift one another up, not only can we change careers, we can change the culture of medicine for women in medicine and for the practice of medicine as a whole. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We hope that this resonated. And a final question would be, who might you want to refer to listen to this podcast? If you love it, we would love it if you would recommend it authentically and honestly, if it's something that has had a meaningful impact on you. My other request, inspired by this conversation, is reach out to us, because we love to hear from people who are listening to the podcast. We love to hear how it impacted your life, because it helps us continue to keep doing this work as a passion project, and it makes the world and this work much more meaningful and impactful for all. We will see you all next week.
Thanks for listening. If our message resonates, we'd love to connect further. Join us for coaching, mindfulness experiences, workshops, and retreats. Invite us to speak at your institution or conference. When you work with us, you don't just consume information, you create real change. Find me, Chang Liang, at Awakened Breath, and Jessie Mahoney at Pause and Presence.
Welcome to today's mindful moment, a pause to notice what you have learned, how you have changed, all the things that are different now about you than came before. Take a moment to ground yourself, to find the soles of your feet on the earth or your sit bones on the chair, wherever you happen to be, and take a moment. Take a moment to bring your mind and your body to the same spot, to let things settle. Noticing once again the soles of your feet on the floor or your sit bones on the chair, and take in a big deep breath, breathing in through your nose. Find your breath, and out through your mouth. Close eyes if it's safe for you to do so, and allow yourself to soften. Soften and reflect. Reflect on how you feel at this moment. Is this practice of mindfulness new for you? Is the way you feel when you do it new? Is it comfortable? Uncomfortable? Enjoy the breath coming in through your nose and out through your mouth. And bring a hand to heart and another hand to top, finding your heart underneath, connecting that heel of the hand into the heart space. noticing that you have a heart, noticing how it feels, noticing if it feels softer than perhaps it has in the past. Notice what happens when you breathe in and wrap it with breath. And when you breathe out, what changes? And taking a moment here, hand on heart, thinking about how you have grown, thinking about how you have changed. How are you different this month than last month? How are you different this year than last year? What has shifted? What is different? What feels different? How do you think differently? What have you learned to do? What have you let go of? What shifted on purpose? And what shifted by accident? Taking a moment to honor your growth. Notice that we aren't static, that we aren't stuck, that things shift and change all the time. Even as adults, we grow, we change, and we evolve. And that growth and shift and evolution is not negative, it's just growth. We sometimes think that all we do is grow old, but maybe we grow wiser. Maybe we grow more calm. Maybe we let go of what doesn't matter. Maybe we soften. Maybe we become more intentional. Maybe we become more kind to ourselves. What is it about you that's different? Taking a moment to notice, to honor, and to appreciate growth, change, evolution, shifts. And when you feel complete, lower your hands and open your eyes and let the light in. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. The light in me honors and reflects the light in each and every one of you. May you continue to grow and evolve and change over time. Have a beautiful week.